I am just working along here on your Honda TRX450ES. Took me a little bit longer to get it in than what I'd hoped. So anyway, I do have it on my left, and I have started work on it. That's the end of my good news. I wish I had better. Unfortunately, I don't. So I'm just going to go through the other issues that I found that you have. So as I think I'd mentioned before, we were replacing your bearings in your axle tube. So that tube actually bolts to the side of your rear differential, and there's a bearing in here, and that bearing has that's the end of that bearing. It's no good anymore, and unfortunately it's gone on longer than it should have. So this is a seal, or what's left of it, and when this is all together and this axle is inside this tube, this is the hub for your left wheel that bolts onto the end of your axle. So that seal in the end of the tube makes contact with this sealing surface on your hub, and you can see really easily, especially if I put it behind white stuff, how much grooving there is in that hub now. So this hub needs to be replaced. I can put a new seal in there. It's not going to seal. It's still going to leak into the bearing. So that's the first thing. Next, so sort of why I've showed you this first is because you have a similar issue on your rear differential. So this is the fluid that came out of it. It's not supposed to look like that. It's supposed to be, well, clearer colored, translucent. I think that's correct. Anyway, we call this chocolate milk in my profession, and it's not a good thing when you see that, because it means that you've had water get into your rear differential. And actually, when I pulled this apart, and actually a little drop just came out, and you can see it sort of puddled in along the bottom of the diff, and that's a drop that just fell out of it. Your tube on this side was all full of axle fluid, or differential fluid, and it's probably got some in there as well, but it's mostly rust. Anyway, that means differential fluid was leaking out, and of course I had suspected already that you needed new seals, and that's why we purchased a kit for it. Unfortunately, once again, that's gone on longer than it should, because, see if I can get this to focus right. Well, you're gonna have to take my word for it, because the camera is being a little bit hard to get along with on this one. So this is your ring gear, and it is quite large inside of here. And if I took the cap back off, you'd be able to see the edge of it. I can show you. I can send you a picture of it if you need it. And on either side of the ring gear, on each side of the differential, is a little stub that sticks out. And the purpose of the stub is to make contact with the oil seals that actually took, there it is. That's the oil seal that was in there, and that's what's left of it. So what's happened, this side has been leaking in, well, mud and everything else, and you now are full of grit down here in your tube, and all that gets into the leaking seal and works its way in around your mating surface here for your seal on your ring gear, and now you have the same issue on your ring gear as you do on your outer hub. So you need a new ring gear. There's no way around that. Next part, and this wasn't something I would notice until I was able to get until I started taking things apart. I started to notice that you had a bit of play in your axle with your ring gear. So these are the splines in here, inside your ring gear, that make contact with the splines in the center of your axle. And when this is how your bike goes. So this drives it. It's a right-hand drive, and it turns this motion into this motion, and then you have contact between the two splined areas of the ring gear and the axle. So on the ring gear, it's wore out and slipping, and the same for the axle, so you can actually see it. I can clean this up better to show you if you need to, but I can tell you that this center area where my finger's riding, and I think you can see it right here on the camera, the difference in the height, that's because the splines are wore out. And part of the reason why that happens that much, and especially it's a kind of a Honda thing, is once you get past, you have all your seals leaking and you're getting water in here. Well, of course, water and steel, and they don't get along well, and it rusts, and then normal wear from using the bike, and you can see how the splines are a lot thinner on the center area than they are on the outside. So far from that side, you need a hub, a ring gear, and an axle. Now, without taking the differential apart, I can tell you, to me, your bearings all feel okay. I don't feel any roughness when I'm moving anything, so I think you get it at least soon enough to prevent having to replace pinion gear bearings or anything like that. But you will need the hub, this differential will have to come apart and the new ring gear put in. Next, let's see, go over to the other side. So, leaking seals on the outside, not leaking as much on the brake side. So this seal was, somebody's greased it, or it was greased from the factory, I guess, or the oil coming out through from the axle, I'm not sure which. But anyway, kind of lucked out here, because this side, where we do have some lines started, they're just surface lines, and we can use this. So this is what the sealing surface for a hub is supposed to look like. Or, well, not quite, but it's closer to what new is than the other one is, for sure. Next, I can't remember if I have on the work order already. I have to look at the work order, but for brake shoes. So the brake shoes, everything here is seized. So I'll take all this apart. And just one second, I just want to grab your work order. Let's see if I have rear brake shoes on there. No, I do not. So, what I'm going to suggest to you is put on a new set of rear brake shoes. I can get all this apart, and I can clean the little stubs of the pivot points for the shoes, and make them all nice and clean again, same as the little shaft that is actually supposed to turn. And you can see that it's partially turned, and even with spring pressure on it, it's still not popping closed, because everything's all seized up. So I can clean all this up. Fortunately, those brake shoes are they're in pretty rough shape inside from corrosion. I would just recommend that we replace those instead of trying to make them work again. You can see where it's been all gouged up. Next, your brake drum. So that's grooved. However, I think I can clean this up enough that you're going to be okay when you put new shoes on. So you'll have brakes again and everything like that, but we're going to have to replace those shoes. Anyway, sorry for the bad news. I'll get you some pricing for all these parts within a day, and I'll send it along to you, and you can let me know what you'd like to do. I have not completed any of the work on the front end of the bike yet. If you want me to order these parts and continue on to the front, then I can do that, and that way if we run into any other issues, then I can let you know. Thanks, and have a great day.